As I alluded to in my review for GT7 1.43 as a whole, I didn't really feel like the Audi TTS is a new car. I mean, it is technically for this game, but of course being a returning face, the fact that we have a couple of other Audi TT variants in the game, the older shape 3.2, the newer shape TTS as well, and of course the racing version, this one, I mean, for a TT fan, I guess it could be a big deal, but for the majority of players, I feel like this is one of those cars that could kind of just wash over you and you'll just get on with the rest of the update. Now, the reality is, if you do decide to use it, it has some pretty nice upgrades, especially visually speaking, that you can work with. You could go for what I've done here, which is kind of a tribute to the MTM tuned twin-engine TTs, or just in general, you can make yourself like a little rally car or a racing variant of the TTS. Now, obviously, being the S version, rather than the more standard 1.8 or 3.2 versions, which many of us would think of for a TT, of course it means you're turbo aspirated. And for a 2-litre engine, it puts out some pretty good numbers. In fact, it's kind of similar, funnily enough, to the Evo. It's not quite as powerful, but up around that kind of region, up around 520 to 540-ish horses, and from a 2-litre engine, that's not bad. Of course, you could always argue that it should be capable of more, but at the end of the day, that's what we're working with, so that's what we've got. In terms of the standard numbers, though, 270 horsepower, or just under, so again, quite similar to the Evo, and funnily enough, even in terms of weight, it's only 5 kilos less than the Evo at 1415. The similarities continue because, of course, it's also front-engine, four-wheel drive, and, as I said, turbo aspirated, and even the point level is pretty damn close because it's only 2 points higher at 511. And to top it all off, the weird part is it's cheaper. Maybe it's not weird, I guess it's less of a legendary car, but it's a good 30 grand less than the Evo, 68,000 credits, which is probably about what you'd expect. Now, I alluded to this earlier on, but I feel like for most players, an Audi TT probably isn't high on your agenda for purchasing. The reality is, if you do decide to buy it, it's a pretty damn nice car. Especially tuned, you can do a lot with it, but it's certainly not an essential buy. It's not the kind of car which I would say you absolutely have to log into the game or download the update or reinstall GT7 if you've uninstalled it just to check out this car. Would many players really be expecting that to be the case? Probably not. What you do get, though, is, not to keep harping on the similarities, but exactly what I said with the Evo. You get what you expect from a TT. You know certain things. It's going to be quite squat, wide, low, not overly long, quite a compact little, almost pitbull kind of ball of energy to drive, plenty of grip, pretty damn forgiving, and of course, probably pretty strong acceleration, especially off the line with that four-wheel drive launch. Maybe decent top speed, but it doesn't really matter because it's not the kind of car that you'd buy that for, and probably, at least, for moderate point level events, quite a lot of usability if you do want to just have an easy win. Spoiler alert, I guess, it's all of the above. That's exactly what you're getting with the TTS. It really is one of those cases where there's nothing at all special, at least in my opinion, to say about this car. If you are, for example, somebody who owns one of these in real life of this generation, then I'm sure you're super happy to see it in the game. For me, for example, the equivalent to this would be seeing something like the Golf R32 Mark V added. Of course, many players would be like, okay, it's another Golf, but then for people like me, or fans of it, would be super happy. So I'm sure for some people, having a TTS is probably a big deal, and you probably really enjoy it. I have seen the sentiment, one which I, to be honest, probably do agree with, that we would have rather had, in some cases, maybe a TTRS, really just go all the way and have the proper hardcore version. It just doesn't feel quite as special as something like that. It's the kind of car which I think fits right in like a Gran Turismo 5 or 6, because it's one of those cars which I would describe as expected. There's nothing special about having this car in the game. It's the kind of vehicle which you would assume would be in the game from day one. It's kind of a, yeah, of course it's there sort of car, where you expect it to be in a dealership. It's just another Audi to try or not try, depending on if you want to. It's not the kind of machine which you'd expect to see destroying leaderboard lap records all over the place. Maybe it could, but probably not. And it will be fairly versatile because the Audi TT always is. That is pretty much all there is to say about it, though. The body kit is cool, the visuals are pretty cool, changing up the grille, the wings, etc. You can make it into a pretty nice looking car. That is the saving grace of this one. Of course its performance is good, as you can see here in the fully tuned one that I'm driving, but again, with 500 to 550 horsepower, that kind of segment, you're not expecting it to be the best thing around. It's going to be good, really good perhaps, but not earth-shattering. The crucial difference, despite having so many similarities with the Evo, is that this one doesn't have the same level of fandom. And it's actually quite an interesting almost case study, if you will. If you take 1.43 as an example of this, take two vehicles which, at least on the surface, have so many similarities between this and an Evo of all things, and yet if you look at the comparison of what a fan favourite car gets treated like, appreciated like, and used like, and compare that to something which most people weren't asking for and didn't really care about, even though it offers much of what the Evo can do, people don't really care. That really is the power of fandom, and it's the power of getting something which you've actually asked for versus getting something which you didn't really care about. It's not to say that this is a bad car in any way. That's kind of my point. It's a really good one. It just doesn't feel that special, and it wasn't a car that most people were asking for. It's more the kind of thing that should have been in the game from day one, certainly with its inclusion in Gran Turismo 6, etc. But moving forward, I would love to hear what your thoughts on this one are. Maybe you've ended up using it quite a lot, or perhaps, like many players, you haven't even bothered buying it or haven't used it that much at all. That's it for my thoughts on the TTS, and of course, the one vehicle which was technically a January car, which I still need to talk about, which we will be discussing tomorrow, is the Bulgari. And until next time, I'll see you then. But for now, thanks for watching.